Oh man, the dust has finally settled. After looking at my notes, I'm just gonna throw this to the side. The dust has settled, people, and it's now hooked up into our veins that we're gonna get more Silent Hill, more Resident Evil, and the survival horror genre, at least in terms of mainstream, indies, all that stuff, has never been more alive and booming. They recently talked about a Konami press event, and we were all thinking they're gonna show a new game here maybe, and Konami was kind of doubling down and confirming it, saying yes, we have a new reveal here. They're working on Metal Gear Solid Delta, they're working on obviously Silent Hill F, and now the unannounced game that was revealed was Silent Hill 1 Remake. I thought it was going to be Castlevania because obviously the pins that happen in the needle is Silent Hill, obviously Metal Gear, and then Castlevania. That's like the big three for that company personally. I was pleasantly surprised and kind of shocked that they just announced this out of nowhere with a little text blurb and the music of Silent Hill 1 playing. I was super ecstatic. I cannot wait for this remake because I believe that Bloober Team really knocked it out of the park with Silent Hill 2 Remake. I thought they did a lot of things really right. It's more positives than negatives. There is negatives to the game that I talked about in my review, which I'm gonna link in the description, but there was a lot of bits and bobs moving in a positive direction after that story trailer, and I believe that was warranted because people were very skeptical and very pessimistic when they saw that gameplay for the first time, where the animations to the human eye looked very janky, cumbersome. How are they gonna pull this off? Bloober Team is mid. A lot of allegations really sank into that game to the point where they could not fuck it up whatsoever. Granted, like I said, there are issues, but they could not fuck it up to a catastrophic level where it's like a 4 out of 10, right? If that game would have got a 4 out of 10, I never would have heard the end of it from the internet, but obviously didn't go in that direction, and now we have a game that is serviceable, worth time, worth effort, worth patience, and definitely brought in a new audience of people that enjoys Silent Hill. Now, without further ado, without further delay, now that the franchise is technically back on the map, we're gonna talk about our wish list here, and the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that Silent Hill 1, the original in 1999, had cut enemies to its name. There were enemies uncovered in the files. They will say them like, oh, there was a butterfly with an eye and teeth markings. There was a manta ray, a frog, a monkey with a bruised face, even though I believe that the romper looks similar to a primate, but I digress. Then there's a huge flesh-colored creature vaguely resembling an ostrich. There's a snake with an unusually long and pointed tongue. And some of these enemies you can see here, like you can see the frog enemy, you can see them being brought up right here. Never really was seen before in the game, but they exist in the files. Let me see if I can find the ostrich enemy. See, that thing looks fucking sick and disgusting and gross. It's just crawling around on the floor. Let's go here. You see these enemies, they look like skinless dogs in my personal opinion. Let's see if I can put that in theater mode and enhance that for you. Obviously the ostrich chicken, that looks readily fucking disgusting. Like I can't say nice things. If I saw these things in a dark alleyway down the street, I would probably jump into the sewer immediately. Right, trying to get away from these little mothers. You see these snakes with the tongue. So there is a plethora of cut enemies that were discovered in these files, and there was speculation on the Silent Hill subreddit saying that these enemies were probably going to be part of a level that was never really finished in the game. Now, there's no uncovering of evidence to this, it's just enemy files, but someone speculated that it was going to be a possible cut zoo in the midst of the game explaining the animals. So at this point, if you don't know the lore of Silent Hill 1, I'm gonna do a little bit of a sit rep the best I possibly can. Basically, it starts out where Dahlia, who is someone indoctrinated into the order, which is this like religious sort of kind of cult, and they're trying to birth a species known as God. And they find out that Alessa, which is Dahlia's daughter, she has the spiritual power or resonance in order to be a perfect vessel and vector for birthing God. Therefore, one of the ways they do this ritual is they decide to sacrifice and you know, burn the child and see what happens with that as they do this ritual. And they say that the house like burnt down or whatever, and that it was just an accident, which is why the child got burnt. However, that was not true. That was a big ass lie. It was all part of what the Order was doing, conducting these little experiments to try to see if they can imprint God into this child. And therefore, because of Alessa's like strong power, her strong presence and power, she managed to split her soul in two, and splitting the soul in two created another baby, so to speak, or another side of her incarnation, called Cheryl Mason, which is the daughter of Harry Mason. And they find this baby on the side of the road and they pick it up, like Harry and his wife at the time, Jody Mason, and it's like, oh well, here's this child. My wife cannot have biological children because she is ill, therefore I'm gonna adopt this baby. Oh, it's like a blessing, a godsend. And they don't know that they actually picked up Cheryl Mason, you know, the reincarnated Alessa Gillespie. Like, stay with me here, I know it's very confusing. And eventually Dahlia, the Order, they're all looking for the power of Alessa, you know, trying to find Alessa, trying to find what exactly happened when the soul got split into. Therefore, Harry's daughter goes missing in Silent Hill. It goes back to where it began. This is where the game started. It's very crazy in terms of a plot, but that's what you really need to know in terms of how they're building and setting up the story. And in Alessa's mind, there was these like machinations, these creatures that was based on either lizards or animals, or even the Lost World, which is the novelization that turned into Jurassic Park eventually. And because of this, it is a no-brainer that there could have possibly been a zoo level based on the machinations of Alessa Gillespie, and thinking of all these larger than life fucked up things, and obviously having the twist and warp due to Silent Hill. I believe they should not only reintroduce these cut enemies because they were already kind of in the original, that would be a nice little throwback, but they could also try to make a zoo level and see if they could fit them in there, and it would be fucking creepy. All right, we don't have a lot of zoo levels to go around in horror games. The one I can think of currently at the moment is Resident Evil Outbreak, because that has like these lions and shit. And I remember playing that, these fucking lions jumping everywhere. It was kind of creepy, I'm not gonna lie. This infected zombie elephant, and seeing this again, that would be a nice idea to touch upon. It's not really needed because it was a cut concept in terms of these enemies, but it would be nice to place them there and see if you can make them more horrific, horrendous, messed up. That'd be nice to see. We're gonna move on to the rest of our wish list. I'm gonna kill the feed, and I'm gonna open up my documents. What else is next? There should be more expansion on the family background and the information behind the Masons, who was Harry's wife, etc. We only see Jody Mason in the intro, and her story and how things ended up is kind of very similar to Mary Sunderland, where she has this weird unknown illness, and she's featured in the intro picking up, you know, the baby with Harry and everything, and you see them start a new family with this reincarnated version of Alessa Gillespie. but you don't know too much about her after the fact because she dies off screen. I'm not saying they should have her particularly in the game, but to reference her more, to have more of a weight on Harry's shoulders, remembering his wife, his other family, that would bring up a level of human emotion that I don't think was present in the first game all too often when it came to the topic of his wife. It was barely non-existent of mentioning her whatsoever. Therefore, that deeper story integration and what drives Harry Mason to not want to lose anyone else, especially his daughter, that could bring out something fierce of the characterization and also add to the story. And I think that's perfectly fine, like some flashbacks of like what was their relationship and this determination of saying, look, I lost you to something that I could not save you from with this illness. I'm not going to lose my daughter. That would be pretty cool if they added in more family backgrounds to the characters. Next up is expanding on Lisa Garland and her drug use and the abuse and manipulation from Dr. Michael Kaufman. At this point, I guess I'll put a spoiler in the description. I am going to be spoiling the fuck out of Silent Hill 1. Therefore, if you are looking forward to this remake, I am so sorry. I probably spilled all the beans, but I'll put it in the title or description just in case newcomers are like, oh, what's this video? We're talking about Silent Hill 1 wishlist. Let me click that. Oh no, I got spoiled. I was looking forward to that remake. I'm sorry, I'm spoiling the old game. When it comes to Lisa Garland, she is a nurse, and I believe that one of the things in the game that they present is that she has this fix of getting this drug hits called PTV, and they call it White Claudia. It was actually in Silent Hill 2 Remake as an Easter egg for an ending. I think one of the endings, James takes the drug and then he lives through like the TV, or there's some vision or whatever, and it shows his body is like not present, or he wasn't there. He lives in bliss, even though the entire situation or whatever is just fabricated due to the hallucination with the drug. And it's something to that effect of what it does to her, but she's dead long before the game even starts, I believe. And therefore she's like some sort of spirit or whatever. She's there in the other world only, and she speaks to Harry, and she's nowhere else when the sirens like go off and it goes all back to normal Silent Hill. She's not there. She's never there, never around in the normal world. That was the first clue that I was like, something is amiss, because why isn't Lisa in the normal world? What the fuck is going on? And then you find out later that happens. She starts bleeding from every orifice, and you get the iconic scene of her trying to hug Harry and his blood everywhere. It's like she's turning into one of the psychotic nurses. With her, Michael Kaufman is obviously the supplier, and it's a very abusive, manipulative sort of relationship. She's tasked to keep Alyssa alive in that long span of time because Kaufman and the Order are like kind of in cahoots a little bit. And they definitely could expand the relationship and show more of the abuse side of Lisa Garland through subtlety, through other things. Like you find certain things in the environment, you find out more about the drug. I do also agree. One of my friends said that they should take this drug and expand it more into the storyline. And I believe the only way I can think of that, because he tried to say that they should use the red liquid as the basis of everything, but I'm like, the red liquid and the white Claudia are like two different things. Red liquid expels the demons, and then the white Claudia is the one that makes you hallucinate and shit. I'm assuming maybe you could make Kaufman unaware of some things. He knows that, yes, we're in the drug trafficking game, but you could take away the element of he really doesn't know about the element behind what the Order wants with the drug. The same thing goes for the red liquid as well, and he really doesn't care. All he cares about is getting paid, this manipulation, and obviously going about his business in his own nefarious and illegal ways. And maybe the Order could be playing him. Maybe the Order could be taking him for a fool. He wants to be taken a little bit more serious. Therefore, he does things where you can tell he and Dahlia at the end, they kind of have a friction, and they could expand on that from there, creating differing ideals, differing aspects, and fleshing out those characters when they do have that collision course and they go against each other near the end of the goddamn game. Another thing is that you could show clear and visual storytelling when Lisa is in the other world with Harry, and one of the things is that you could allude to the abuse. Maybe Kaufman like got tired of Lisa at one point during the deal, and it's like, you're going to care to this child or I'm gonna put a cigarette on your goddamn arm. And he does it, and you see the burnt cigarette butts on Lisa's arm, and Harry doesn't know where they're from. He doesn't know what's going on. Progressively, as you see Lisa in the other world, her condition gets worse, and you see her get more beat up, and it's so fucked up and tragic. But I think that adds to the backstory of what exactly is going on, and how, for all intents and purposes, Lisa is a junkie. She is on this drug, but she believes that defending this child is the best course of action for her. She will go through hell and back to try to protect Alyssa. And in the hospital, you can have Alyssa and Lisa have these moments, or have these moments on the radio where they're talking and she says, "Help me," or "Mommy," and Lisa just falls to her knees because she knows what is going on, and you know what is going on as the player, and there's nothing she could do to save her ultimately in the end. That is something they should elaborate on, expand in some level, on some capacity. This portion of the video is going to be the obvious one. Clearly, I played Silent Hill 2 Remake. I want to go back and get my platinum. I want to talk about the things that Bloober Team has specifically implemented in that game, and what can carry over and what could be left on the cutting room floor, and things they probably need to work on, or the things they did well that can migrate well into a Silent Hill 1 remake. The first thing is obvious, like the endings. There are two new endings in Silent Hill 2 Remake. The first one is Bliss, where there is the PTV drug that was taken by James. He takes it near the front of the television, and then all of a sudden when you turn on the videotape or whatever, you see there is James and Mary having their resort vacation. James picks up the camera. He says, "Oh, it's nothing. I'm just gonna cut this off. I'm gonna stop recording now." And you see his body is gone from the hotel room itself. It's fucking trippy. It's crazy. It's one of those what happened or what's going on, leaving your mind blank and asking questions right after the fact. Then Stillness is kind of a extended version of In Water, where you see Murray's dead hands touching James. He's having his emotional moments of guilt, regret, loss, remorse, and then he drives off right into the sea. I think this ending was a little bit less interesting, but the acting really solidified it. It wasn't anything that was a fresh coat of paint that I would call new. It was basically an extended ending. It was appreciated though. I did enjoy it. I do want to see those extensions and new takes and new forms of endings in this game, whether you do things differently, what could have happened, the consequences of certain actions like killing Sybil, and that having a bit more weights if you don't have this item, that item. I want to see that carry over into some of the new endings, and ultimately some of the things that leads into Silent Hill 3 or doesn't lead into Silent Hill 3, or premonitions, or just some trippy ass ending that makes me go, damn, that was actually well good. That kept me guessing the entire time, as opposed to X character just dies and there's no weight or substance to what is going on. I want more mystery type endings if they're gonna put in new things, and I believe it is the perfect platform to do that. I know they're gonna do it again. Connecting all of the lore, obviously we saw the room in Silent Hill 2 Remake that had the Order painting, the little halo of the sun in the background with the peeling wall, and James being in that room and saying something like, "It feels very, very crazy in here. I don't think we should be here. It feels like pure evil is in this room." And that was a room that was in Silent Hill 3. You go in there and you stay in there a little bit as Heather, I think Douglas, leaves his coat as well. You could put those connective tissues and Easter eggs and stuff allude to things that Silent Hill 2 set up, or allude to things that Silent Hill 3 will eventually set up, because 1 and 3 are like bread and butter at this rate. They need to connect those heavily, but also the rest of the lore and the town and the characters and mentions and references and Easter eggs as we go on, etc. More. It's just more. I want more. I need more lore. All right. One thing I don't want to come back is obviously Bloober likes to expand the hell out of some of the pacing for these remakes, and I believe that this should be a little bit more tighter. There shouldn't be places for the sake of there being an empty space or an area, or just because, and you're running the gauntlet and the game feels like 20 hours, but is nothing meaningful in between some of these areas. I did not like the labyrinth at all in Silent Hill 2 Remake, and I believe that area suffered the most from bloat. It's like an area that really didn't need to be super expanded. Therefore, if you're going to expand something, take a motto, take a page out of Resident Evil 1 Remake's book, where when they put in new additions and new levels and new enemies, it felt like it was scary as fuck, or it meant something. That is the perfect ideal blueprint to adding in something new. If you put in a zoo, it's meaningful to the plot, the area, and everything else, and it does feel like something you need to go through to challenge yourself to get through this nightmare, then it should be there, and I would like to see it. And if you learn more about Alessa and stuff like that, just put something in there that is more of a golden piece of space that is warranted, versus just putting in some filler, because you need to stretch a section that was 5 minutes over into 30, and I believe that doesn't really need to happen at all. So they should sharpen up the pacing a lot. Definitely, if you're worried about the game being way too short for the OG and now we have to expand the original, just put in meaningful areas and also sharpen up the replay value and give us new content that makes sense, but also is a little bit innovative as well. That's what I'm looking forward to for the pacing. Just good full fat pacing where I feel like I'm getting my $70 worth. Next up, keep all the weapons. Now they cut out the great knife in Silent Hill 2 Remake, and I'm kind of salty about that, actually. That kind of pissed me off a bit when they cut out the great knife. It's still in the game, but you just drag it. You don't hit people with it, which is what I like to do in the original game. I want to see the hyper blaster come back. I want to see the emergency hammer. Clearly those weapons in the main campaign they're going to keep, but the secret ones, I want to see stuff like the katana come back, where I got a god dang sword, right? And I'm just chopping people up into confetti, man. It's fun. The main thing I liked about Silent Hill 1 is that they had a lot of melee weapons. They had, a decent amount of guns you could use. Clearly, your shotgun, pistol, your typical basic stuff, but I would like to see that come back in spades, if so, because that gives me more room to play with some of the things that were already set in stone in the game. And if you just cut them, then that kind of sucks. Moving on, I believe, this is a no-brainer. Bloober is going to make Silent Hill a lot more explorable with old Silent Hill, and just seeing that all expanded. I believe that needs the expansion the most, because old Silent Hill felt like very small in my opinion, so making it a little bit more bigger and having certain side activities to do and certain nooks and crannies and different ways to get to certain places, and maybe seeing haunts that were in other Silent Hill games but you're seeing them in this one, that would be pretty cool actually, right? So yeah, I think expanding areas, having Harry go into places he never went before, maybe you can see a little bit of the other side of the map, you know, a little bit of the Silent Hill 2 line. That'd be pretty good. Maybe going into there just a little bit if you want to, and exploring a certain section of the game and reminiscing over that, and Harry having no idea what's over on the other side of Toluca Lake. I think that'd be kind of a cool idea, you know, just to understand there is a bigger space, and not only that, but the other spaces you can go into that's you know, all big places reminiscent within the first game. And yeah, one thing I like Bloober doing is them expanding on the other world and making it all different and look horrific and look fucked up and feel like other areas of their own, and adding parameters and stuff to the creatures that were not in the normal worlds. For example, like the nurse with the knife, where she can like chop you all up in the other world. You don't run across them usually. Like in the early parts of the game, it's mostly just the nurses with the pipes, but in the other worlds they make the creatures do certain things that might be a little bit different, that might be a pattern that you have to adjust to and dodge around. And I think doing something like that in particular will keep the player on their toes. It makes them aware and alert. There's something more dangerous down here as I trek through the game. And the other world should be fierce, it should be violent, it should challenge you a lot more than the regular Silent Hill world and be different. And I like that difference very much. The multi-tiered boss fights. Now, the only comparison I have to this is fucking Dark Souls, where all of a sudden in Silent Hill 2 Remake, you're fighting a goddamn boss, and then all of a sudden they just pop out like, oh, you injured me enough times, I'm gonna pop into my second level, I'm gonna pop into my third, and they start doing completely new attacks. When they introduced that into Silent Hill 2 Remake, I thought it was the most gnarly stuff I've seen for this franchise. I was not expecting them to have multi-tiered boss fights. As my phone goes off, fuck you, I'm talking about Silent Hill, bitch. Already. Never mind that. I should have put this on vibrate, but still. The multi-tier fights, I'm leaving that in, by the way. The multi-tier fights is awesome for the bosses, and I need to see that come back into full swing with the lizard boss, the split worms, and the creatures that are around. The big butterfly that you fight on the roof, I forget their name. I forgot their name. The only memorable boss I can remember is the moth boss and the one at the end, the incubus. And I know it changes based on the ending as well. You can keep that intact and do something different with it and make it a different style of boss fight. And that would be cool to see return again, definitely from Bloober Team. Bloober Team. The last one is puzzle difficulty for Silent Hill 1. There was no puzzle selection for Silent Hill 1 to my memory. I think it was just you played the game on easy, normal, or hard, right? They didn't introduce like action levels where the game gets easier or harder depending on combat circumstances until Silent Hill 2 and onwards. And then they split up the puzzle side. You can make the puzzles as easy or hard as you want. And I think that's paramount for this game because they have a puzzle that really burns me alive when I think about it. It's the piano puzzle, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what Raven is sitting next to the 30th quarter or not. You're confusing the fuck out of me, right? So my first playthrough, I feel like I am dumb and I want to play the game on normal puzzles and not have to deal with how the Blood Raven sits to the right until I figure out a proper guide and I do it from there. I just want to have that streamlined experience on puzzles, and then I'll put it on action hard while the enemies are tanking me and trying to kick my ass, alright? And the last bit is more things from the original that should or shouldn't return. Before I segment into the final part, I just want to say there are two ideas that I thought was pretty grand that was taken from R Silent Hill. Another shout out to those guys. R Silent Hill, hi, how are you? Anyway, there was one female user talking about her needs and wants and inspirations and things that should be in this game, and I saw she mentioned DLC, and one DLC she mentioned was this comic that should be adapted into DLC where you play as Lisa Garland's boyfriend or Lisa Garland herself, and it is over the 7-year time gap of Lisa getting addicted to the drug, the PTV, and it will add some story context and maybe make the entire situation of finding out Lisa's death tragic, because I believe no one knows how she physically died. She's kind of like a ghost in the game, as I said, and this would be the conclusion to showing all of that. And I think this comic being adapted and maybe being DLC, and Ito even illustrated this and showing Kaufman coming to the picture, that would be some interesting post-game content, alongside the fact of she also wanted a segment of Sybil to be playable as DLC, whether it's a prequel or leading up to the events of maybe a new ending or whatever, what have you, changes being made. That would be also cool content to see her side of exploring the town while she was in Silent Hill, I believe, to just expand on that. That's really a good idea, and I'm all for them doing anything of that nature. But first, they kind of have to come out with Born from a Wish. They have to just kind of do that and see how that's gonna go when Silent Hill 2 possibly has more of announcements after the game goes to Xbox, because the timed exclusive deal is ending. I digress, that's besides the point. I just wanted to bring up that little tangent and tidbit. Anyway, back on topic, making the cult interesting. The cult was kind of this background funny farce in Silent Hill 1 for the OG, and you know, they were scrambling around doing things. I think the cult should be a bit more terrifying, and their presence should be really felt throughout the game. That's one thing that I think is easy to agree with. That's something that people would probably want, and I think that's something where we're on the same page. We're all on the same side, right? The same page for that shit. More connections to Silent Hill 3. That's a no-brainer. If you're making Silent Hill 1, you kind of have to talk about Silent Hill 3 and make your stance firm in the ground with the plots of that game and the interconnectivity and the future events that's going to be set up. You kind of have to make allusions to what is going on, and I think they will. This is a typical one that is going to be definitely on the table when they finally start to round out this game and complete it. It's a no-brainer that this is going to happen. Lose the weird hop. I'm just reading my notes, like I just picked up this little piece of paper and it says lose the weird hop and dodge that they had in the original Silent Hill 1. All right, how can I explain this? There is a dodge technique kind of in Silent Hill 1, and it's like a backwards bunny hop. It's really weird. It's like a little backwards bunny hop that you do. The animation takes forever to complete. It's nothing similar or reminiscent to how dodging is in Silent Hill 2 Remake. And I think that shit has to go, obviously. Like, maybe you can have some cool looking backward step that doesn't take a lot of frames as it did in the first one, and dodge around like James sort of did in Silent Hill 2 Remake, where you have that paradigm of having a clunky protagonist, but also someone who can fight back just a little bit. But if you get overwhelmed, then obviously you fall in the trope of survival horror, which is the pits of hell will come for you if two nurses is beating the fuck out of you with pipes and you can do nothing about it. I want to feel somewhat of a person that can fight, obviously, but when it gets overwhelming, I want to start rethinking my strategies. And one thing we didn't talk about before, and I think Max Durats made a really great point, is that there should be fight or flight options in this game. No contest. That's something that Bloober needs to work on. Fight or flight options. The ability to run away, run scared, and try to get away from my enemies, and then the option to fight them needs to be part of the ordeal and strategy in this game, because I want to have multiple options when approaching combat. Should I stealth around particular people, or should I run, or do I stand my ground and fight and maybe I'll die? You never know. It should feel like a true scary horror game with a bunch of options to choose from, and that falls into the everyman paradigm: running, hiding, etc. Let's see, what else do we have? Lean in hard to the Midwich Elementary School segment. This is quite possibly the scariest part of the game. You're going to a school where there's small miniature looking gray children with knives, and they want to stab you in the leg repeatedly. I don't think that nothing could get scarier than that. There's also like ghost babies in the classroom, and maybe you can make something super frightening and scary with that too. I just believe that this school should be nightmare fuel with these new graphics in Unreal 5 and just scare the fuck out of me. That's exactly what I need. I want to see grim depictions of just serrated and torn apart gray children. Maybe you can make them look like the mumblers a bit of the mutated head just sprouting out, but they're not really mumblers, but they all just look distorted and sick and twisted and screwed up, and maybe some of the kids are like, help me, and I would be, oh my god, this is really screwed up. And that bullying factor as well, because Midwich was the location where kids picked on Alyssa every day, and you feel her pain through the notes and the sprawlings all over the classroom, and they should make that pop out more. Then there's the cat that gets eaten alive in the locker, and you're thinking to yourself, what is that noise? And this cat gets like torn apart, and then you could extend the segment, maybe put like a bunch of blood on the floor and cat body parts, and just this part should be the most fucked up part of the game, and I don't think they should drop the ball on this whatsoever. And then the last couple of things, the alleyway intro, that needs to be maintained with the weird twisted contorted camera angles, and as you slowly go into the descent of darkness and you walk into that hallway and you're wondering what's going on, and you slowly go into the other world and you see wheelchairs everywhere, IV drips everywhere, all the rust and belts and whatnot, and everything on the wall just sort of rusted away with this rust belt look. And then you start to see the big sprawled out body that is the centerpiece, and Harry's like, what the fuck is going on? Let's see. Well, he doesn't say that because they don't say the F-bomb in this game. And then that's when the gray children come out with knives and they start to try to kill you, and then once you die, you wake up into the real world and Silent Hill once again starts. That needs to be maintained, absolutely. You can't throw that out. I know that this goes back to the story, but again, like I said, the order needs to be taken serious. Just a little bit of a serious tone, but again, keep Harry as a determined character that's different from James, not depressed, but someone who wants to save his daughter, that has a layer of hurt behind him due to his wife dying. They need to maintain that. I think you have to bring out that fatherly element a lot with this character and roll with it in various degrees and in sort of personality driven ways that the original did not fulfill in all aspects, I believe. You know, the basic templates and aspects here or there, but definitely add more personality and characterization. And the last few things is they need to make some items more useful and interconnect them in. And the things I'm thinking of is like Scylla Metatron, Floros, or whatnot. You know, you use that at the end of the game. Maybe make a bigger presentation or a fetch quest for them that leads to like these little mystery gates, and you're wondering what the fuck is going on with collecting this, and it adds a little bit more exposition as opposed to saying, oh, we use this item at the end of the game, that's it. Even I remember Heather calling the seal of Metatron useless as fuck, but ultimately some of these things, especially the red liquid, leads into more future events of the game, so have that tie in Harry finding these things out, making those notes that he makes with the save points a lot more prevalent to what's going on in his head. I think I would love that inner monologue of Harry, and this happened in some of the dramatizations of Silent Hill, where Harry's talking to himself thinking he's going mad, he's going nuts, but he has to persevere and continue on for his daughter. The last thing I want to bring up is Sybil Bennett. Okay, let's talk about the idea of Sybil's fate. I had to go straight up to the Wikia for this one. Fuck it, I'm using it. But this is all confusing, and this is the most condensed place I could find this information. Now, there has been developer debate within the crux of Silent Hill in terms of Sybil's fate. Director saying that, oh, the good plus ending is the canon one. Sybil replaces Jodie in the opening, and now they're moving on with this new baby, Heather Mason, and they become a family for a bit. Sybil is neither seen nor mentioned in Silent Hill 3. This does not necessarily mean that she died. However, the good plus ending in which she survives seems to suggest that Harry and Sybil intended to raise Heather together, making her complete absence noticeable. Most tellingly, in a section regarding Sybil and Harry's relationship following the good plus ending in the Book of Lost Memories, writer Hiroyuki Owaku stated, "What happened to Sybil was left to the player's imaginations." However, the Book of Lost Memories also states that the good ending in which Sybil dies is the orthodox ending, which is connected to the third game. You already see some of the problems here, right? You got people saying the good plus ending is the one we're going with, or you got people saying, oh, it's the good ending in which Sybil dies. And then you got Ito bluntly saying, yes, I remember Sybil is dead. When asked the meaning of Owaku's statement, he replied, if you chose the good plus ending among them, she is not dead. Maybe. Director Keiichiro Toyama, I know I probably butchered that, who left Team Silent after Silent Hill, was not involved with the later entries. Initially, he stated that he intended the good ending to be the true ending, which is the one where Sybil dies, and he believes that Owaku developed Silent Hill 3 around the game's good ending, where she dies. However, Toyama changed his mind, and he also considers the good plus ending, where she lives, to be a true ending, to be the true ending of the game. This is confusing. This is very confusing with the fate of Sybil Bennett. And you see, I'm going crazy right now. I feel like I have actually inhaled PTV just trying to explain this to people. Bloober Team, you guys need to pick a lane with this character and stick with it in terms of her fate and make it definitive. Is she dead in your timeline and your reimagining, or is she alive? In my personal opinion, if she lived, that could bring up a lot more characterization and storytelling that leads into Silent Hill 3 Remake. Now Heather has a mom that's alive, and she has a father that is alive, and then the events of the game will transpire. I would not mind if she just died in Silent Hill 3 Remake with an impact going forward. And then you can have a new boss fight or new characterization, or now Heather has lost both of her parents and this is all surreal. This all is like spiraling downward for this child of suffering, for this fated destiny of birthing this being, you know, known as God. And I really want to see all of this realized, and if they keep her alive for a little bit of time, I don't think there would be fans that would mind it. Maybe not the Silent Hill purists, because some of these directors say yes, no, not knowing which way is up with these endings and this fate of the character. But ultimately speaking, whatever they go with, I just hope it's more impactful and more definitive than the original fate of Sybil Bennett to begin with. It needs to be a stamp on it that makes better sense leading into Silent Hill 3. And I don't mind if they make some changes here. If they do make some changes, you could also interwork that into the story and make it more grand for the remake of 3, and make it more sad if Sybil is around and she dies, turns into a creature, or something happens to her along with Harry, and you could double down on that tragedy for sure. I do not mind either option, but if you go in the route of keeping her alive, that would be cool to see. Maybe have her like protect Heather for a little bit, or try not to get her too involved in things as Harry is around, and you could make some more backstory with that game that would make sense, be pertinent, and have her be a mother, like have her be like a surrogate mother to this character. And I would like to see that. I think that would be very cool. This is one of the changes that I do not mind of the sort. But instead of these directors playing musical chairs with their ideas and saying, oh, she's alive, she's dead, this ending, that ending, you gotta make the true ending more definitive in this game. What ending do you want to go with, Bloober Team? You have to go in this direction. There is no other way. You cannot stray away from it. You cannot run, you cannot hide. It has to be definitive. Alrighty, I know this was almost an hour long. I have illustrated all of the ideas from my head, everything that has hit the canvas so far on this artistic integrity known as making videos and podcasting and all this other stuff I've been doing for you guys. I want to say thank you for sticking around with my crazy crackpot theories, especially on keeping Sybil Bennett alive. All the stuff I want to see for Silent Hill 1 remake by Bloober Team, things they should take into advisement, consideration, stuff that can be handled just a bit better and fixed and fine-tuned. And if they are really cracking the bill on this, and they are taking feedback into consideration like they did for Silent Hill 1 remake, we could be looking at a game that far exceeds the original on every single cylinder. And I cannot wait for the future, really. Silent Hill 4, that's the one I really want. I love 3. I need 4. I need 4 realized ghosts and shit. Paranormal activity just scares me into oblivion. I need that now. I need to see that. Anyway, I am signing off. My name is Renegade Operative. Did you guys like the video? Did you hate it? Like, share, comment, dislike. Leave your comment in the comment section. Let your voice be heard about the topic at hand. What do you personally want for Silent Hill 1 remake by Bloober Team? And I will see you guys next time. Later.